Understanding Britain and the British Crisis. August 29, 2019 by Anna von Reitz. If you are watching television today, you are hearing a lot of scratching and squawking about the Queen suspending Parliament. You are also hearing a lot of very queer verbiage about our unwritten and flexible constitution. Say what? An unwritten and flexible constitution? That's the equivalent of saying, an unwritten and flexible contract to buy your home, or secure your services to paint a house. It's a sort of wink and nod arrangement, in which you are presumed to approve of and trust whatever the legislature does in your name. Sound familiar? It's the same exact schtick that the British Crown Corporation employed here. We are not the only ones waking up. It's just too bad that the British Parliament is as ignorant, apparently, as the US Congress. It's complete, obvious, nonsensical blather to talk about or accept an unwritten, flexible contract of any kind, yet otherwise perfectly sane people are spewing this out of their mouths on the BBC and broadcasting it. Something that isn't written down and which is flexible, to be defined however one party or another wishes to define it at any given time, is worthless. So they are admitting, apparently without realizing it, that their constitution is worthless. They are also describing Britain as a constitutional democracy. No, 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 no. Britain is not and has never been a constitutional democracy. It is a limited constitutional monarchy. Notice the difference: constitutional democracy versus constitutional monarchy. See? It's the same kind of game that has been played here. America isn't a democracy either. America is governed by 50 independent self-governing state republics. Internationally, these republics are operating as states. These states act through a federation of states known as the United States of America. You see? It's the same claptrap about democracy in Britain as it is here. It's the same bunch of lies and the same game plan of criminals usurping against the lawful government in Britain as it is here and elsewhere. We are in the presence of a global commercial conspiracy, which has used the territorial, which means Commonwealth governments, to implement their schemes, and which has arbitrarily defined all those territorial governments as democracies. So what is a democracy? It's a Greek, Hellas, institution of mob rule. If 51% out of 100 such citizens want to eat your liver, they consider it perfectly legal to do so, though it will never be lawful. Acting upon their principle of mob rule, they disrespect everyone and everything, including the property rights of others, and they behave as pirates and parasites on land and sea. Most alarmingly, if 51% of their population wants to sit on their butts and receive everything for free, they think they are well within their rights to rob and enslave the remaining 49% to accomplish their desired end. The problem for all these secretive self-proclaimed democracies is that they are all organized as corporations and have no natural right to exist. The further problem for them is that they have never in the history of any of these countries that they claim to rule over ever faced a public plebiscite or received a public mandate, that is, they've never proven to have a 51% majority in favor of anything they have proposed. So even as self-proclaimed democracies, all of their actions have been completely illegitimate and criminal in nature, and even a government by mob rule cannot be asserted. So what do we have in control of Britain? The same kind of criminal corporate government that has usurped against the lawful government in America. If you look around, you find the same thing in France, in Germany, in Sweden, in Japan, all over the world. All these countries proudly and ignorantly claiming to be democracies haven't got a clue what it means, and their governments don't have a mandate to rule as a democracy, either. Japan is supposed to function as a constitutional monarchy, not a constitutional democracy. Find me a record anywhere showing that the general population of any of these countries was fully informed about what a democracy is, and given a straight-up opportunity to adopt democracy as their form of government? Show me proof that any of them have done so via a fully disclosed general plebiscite election. You won't find any such record, because democracy is a crappy form of government that allows the strong to act as predators against the weak, and naturally the predators didn't want to give the victims an honest choice in the matter. The creeping rot of the corporate criminals is everywhere, powered by banks drunk with digits and delusions. And now, all over the world, the proverbial cows of this situation are coming home. This has all been engineered behind the scenes by papists and Freemasons, and the popes and the Roman Curia, who are the ones responsible under ecclesiastical law for oversight of all corporations on earth and the air jurisdiction governing intellectual property in general, have obviously failed in their duty to liquidate corporations operating as crime syndicates. This is how the popes and the Roman Curia and the Holy See are involved in all of this. It's their responsibility to make sure that such things never happen, and yet we wake up one morning and, what ho! Smell the English breakfast tea steaming in your cup. There isn't a legitimate democracy anywhere on earth. There are just a bunch of filthy, dirty commercial corporations running their internal affairs as democracies, but even internally, they don't have a mandate and are nothing but lawless mercenary pirate organizations. The UK Parliament is the board of directors for the territorial government running the United Kingdom as a parliamentary democracy. The fact is that all that they really have any right to control are their own officers and employees, but they have usurped upon the government of the people of Britain in the same way as their counterparts in America, Germany, and elsewhere have usurped upon the rest of us. They have pretended to be the government over the people of Britain, and they have used the people and their assets as chattels backing their corporate debts in the same way that the U.S. Congress has abused its employers. And it is all nothing but crime. It's all bourgeois. Constructive fraud. Probate fraud. False claims in commerce. It has all been funded by criminal bankers and securities brokers and implemented and enforced by employee-owned and operated crime syndicates engaged in everything from commodity rigging, monopoly interests, human trafficking, drugs, alcohol, pornography, gambling, securities fraud, counterfeiting, inland piracy, unlawful conversion, treason, murder, money laundering, and more. These quote-unquote corporate democracies don't represent us, don't represent the Brits, don't represent the Germans, don't represent the Japanese. All they represent are territorial corporations, corporate officials and corporate employees. And forget the similarly constructed municipal corporations that serve municipal employees, which are plenary oligarchies, organizations of members of parliaments and congresses that claim to have the right to boss their employers around, enslave them, take their private property, and abuse them at will. They are even worse, more criminal, and even less justifiable. Yes, you read that right, and if you have been following along, you are now realizing that the UK Parliament has been functioning in precisely the same way and status as the US Congress, and the United Kingdom Parliament has been functioning in the same way and territorial status as the United States Parliament. Both these entities are nothing but government employee corporations, run by government employees, for government employees. Was it your intention to give your body, soul, land, home, businesses and everything else to your employees? Did you knowingly let them declare you legally dead and allow them to work a probate fraud against your interests, so that they could better control you and offer your assets, all of them including your children, as chattel belonging to their corporations, available to support their spending? Did you ever knowingly agree to that? Did you elect to participate in a corporation acting as a government, operated as a democracy? Did you knowingly consent and agree to gift these organizations with your private property? Are you sick of this criminality, promoted by people on your payroll? So, what do we do? Looks like the Queen just made her first move as the Pope's regent by suspending Parliament. And which Parliament did she suspend? The Territorial Parliament. Most of the people participating in this fiasco are blissfully ignorant of what they are doing. They believe that they are part of a legitimate parliament elected by the people of Great Britain, representing their respective land jurisdiction counties. Their first clue that this is not true is the word district being attached to everything, as in the preposterous misnomer and oxymoron, county district court. Get a clue, folks, any county that is in a district is not a county by definition. It's time to educate everyone and put an end to this archaic and nasty system of commercial feudalism, beginning with the conversion of all government corporations to non-profit corporations, the conversion of all C Corps to B Corps, and the return of all titles and land patents to the counties and people of each country, plus the profits and credit they are owed. After that, following a transition period needed to re-educate everyone, let me suggest that no government corporation ever be allowed to operate for any purpose to profit itself, and no corporation traded on a public stock exchange ever again be issued a for-profit-only charter, nor given bankruptcy protection out of public funds. It's time for mammoth reform of all these operations on a worldwide basis. As we begin the necessary changes, yes, hold onto your hats, but don't be afraid. These are your employees. It's time you reminded them of the facts.